But back to politics, with rumours are swirling around Westminster that the tax cuts are imminent. Labour is calling the government to increase business investment to get the economy growing again.
Well, joining us from Westminster is the Labour MP and Shadow Financial Secretary to the Treasury, James Murray. Briefly, if you can, what would you do with £25 billion of that fiscal headroom? Not personally, but for the country.
Yes, thanks. Well, look, let's see what the fiscal situation is. But what's really clear to us is the priority for the government should be to tackle the cost of living crisis and to get the economy growing, which is the way to make people better off in the long run. So, we've been very clear that they should be investing in clean energy, in insulating homes to bring down people's energy bills. They should be reforming planning to get Britain building the homes we need to make housing more affordable. And they should be cutting NHS waiting lists, which is important not just for people waiting to be seen, but also for the economy to help people get back into work. So there's plenty the government should be doing to tackle the cost of living crisis, get the economy growing, and that's what we want to see.
James, welcome to Talk today. This is just me being really honest, OK? This government, in my humble opinion, is sort of stuck in a quagmire of confusion and direction, and people are negative about what they're going to say. I thought Nick's question was great, right? 25 billion quid. Your shadow chancellor over the weekend has promised to prioritise tax cuts for workers. Then she says it's about growing the economy and business. I don't want to hear about clean energy or the NHS. Would you give that to people so they've got more pounds in their pocket, or would you cut business rates to make the economy grow further down the line? Because surely the cost of living means people want money now, James Murray.
Well, look, I think it's absolutely clear that the tax burden in this country is at an incredibly high level right now, the highest in 70 years. There's been 25 tax rises in this Parliament alone. The working people are taking the burden of so many of those tax increases. And as Rachel Reeves, the Shadow Chancellor, has set out, overall we want the tax burden on working people to be lower. But we're also very clear that we wouldn't promise anything where it's not fully costed and fully funded. And that's the way that we would set out all of our pledges.
I get that. And
you also mentioned
one
business.
Of the things, if I can say this, James, one of the things that's different with the Labour Party, and I fully accept this, is that you talk about everything being costed, but you're not answering the question. Would you give it to people in that? Would you say to people, there's a cut in income tax, or would you say to business, there's a cut? Or are you going to stand at the sidelines like the Tories and say, we're not quite sure at the moment, we'll try and be all things for all people? I'm asking for the people who are watching and listening here who are skint because of a cost of living crisis. Tell them what Labour will do.
Well, look, I'm going to be really clear about this, that our plans, if we were in government, will set out ahead of the next general election our manifesto. And that's really important because we don't know what we would inherit when the general election comes around next year. Right now, we're talking about what the government are going to be doing this week in the autumn statement. And we've set out very clearly our priorities. We're concerned about the government's priorities. We're concerned about them not having a plan for growth. Because you mentioned business investment. Getting businesses to grow, getting the economy growing is the way over the medium and long term to make people across Britain better off and to make sure we have more sustainable revenue for our public services.
James, a new poll shows that voters actually trust Labour over the concern when it comes to the economy. What is your plan when it comes to being the party of fiscal responsibility? This is this phrase that that your party keep on bringing out. Why are you choosing to back businesses? How are you going to back businesses?
Well, look, you're right that fiscal responsibility is at the very heart of what Rachel Reeves, the Shadow Chancellor, and the rest of us are setting out in terms of our approach to the economy. Just last week we had a vote on a new fiscal lock that we would want to see introduced in government, which would guarantee that when you're making any significant and permanent changes to tax and spending, there's a guaranteed report from the Office of Budget Responsibility so that MPs, the public, can see exactly what the effects of those changes are going to be. Because we saw around this time last year what happened when Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng were in Downing Street, and they sidelined the Office of Budget Responsibility, made unfunded tax cuts, were reckless with the economy, and working people are still paying the price.
My friend, we've done Liz Truss, we've done Kwasi Kwarteng. We all know that was a nightmare. I'm
sorry, hang on a sec. I don't think the effects of Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng are done.
I get that, my friend, but I think
working people are still paying the price for it now through higher mortgages.
I get that, but when you talk about this phrase, fiscal responsibility, all we've simply tried to ask is, can you get off the fence and tell us, right, what you think is going to be Labour's approach. Simply this week, if you had that money in the pocket for business. Now, I understand you're saying we don't know. I'm telling you, there's 25 billion quid. And as Nick said 10 minutes ago, as Shadow Chief Secretary of the Treasury, if you had that 25 billion in a different world, what would you do with it, James Murray? That's all.
And look, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I'm not going to make up policy here live on air. We are going to see what the government says later this week. We'll set out our response to what the government says. We are setting out our alternative now, and ahead of the next general election, when we know what we would likely inherit if we won, we'll set out our detailed plans in a manifesto.
All right, my friend. Well, listen, we appreciate your time this morning, and thank you very much indeed for joining us on Talk today. I'm going to go straight to Ava Santina at the risk of being slaughtered. Do you know what frustrates me about politicians, the length and breadth of this country? They can't answer a question, can they?
I mean, I don't know what you're talking about. I thought that was very clear.
Well, I wish a camera had been on you whilst it was going on.
Look, I think that, Labour's argument will be that they're not in government at the moment. They don't want to give the Conservatives any good ideas.
Don't give away too much. I get that.
They don't want to give away too much. But, I mean, I don't think
James,
it would hurt them, would it?
We all accept that Labour haven't got the books, the access the government does, right? But you can answer a simple question, which is business or personal income
How many
tax.
times? Nick asked it, I asked it.
Broad strategy, which direction, can't say it. And he says, I can't make up policy in the 11 there. You've had 4 years in opposition. And I mean, the point is that I can understand not going along with sort of every different policy, but you can say broadly what you would do, who you'd fight for. The great politicians of the past, Gordon Brown, Tony Blair, Margaret Thatcher of the 80s, they knew who they stood for, they knew who they fought for. Labour ought to have some idea.
But my question for it, and why I support absolutely what Nicola said was, and I'm not criticising Rachel Reeves, she might turn out to be the next Chancellor, be fantastic, but she on the one hand said, we're going to help business, we're going to help people, inheritance tax is awful. Oh, hold on a second, I might not cancel it. We need to know something.
And of course, remember, that he mentioned in that interview, Liz Truss, Kwasi Kwarteng, Labour went along with 95% of the mini-budget last year. So they go along with the Tories say because they want to appear as credible as them. And that's the thing, is that if you're coming around it, I don't think it's about necessarily, as you said earlier, can the Conservatives win your vote, but Labour might lose it.